Hello, everyone. All right, so looky here. We now have a store with 11,000 items in it. That was quick. So let's look at some of this because I'm actually quite happy with this. I seriously expected only like 6 or 7,000 of them to post because back when I used to bulk list, that's the kind of rate I would get. But the reason that it was lower before is because I had already posted a lot of the items in the past and they'd since gotten deleted, so I try and repost them, but Hydra would just delete them assuming they were still on eBay. So that didn't happen this time because I reset everything and I didn't have any items posted from the beginning, right? Aside from the like 1 or 2 items I posted to test everything. But I'm actually pretty impressed. Like, this means that after all of the out of stocks come in, after about a week of the things settling down, we are actually going to have a 10,000 item store in stock. Like, that is honestly perfect. Like, this is exactly what the number needs to be operating at 10,000 kind of in the beginning, because this is going to go down a lot. Let me explain a little bit more about the kind of results we have here. So if you guys noticed earlier, this was kind of by accident, but it worked out. When I was setting up my pricing, I set the default quantity in Hydra Lister to 10 and the default quantity in SkuGrid to 15. So this means that when the item gets posted, it gets posted at a default quantity of 10. And then once SkuGrid looks at it and reprices it, then it gets modified to be 15. And from that point forward, if it's 15, we know that it's in SkuGrid, right? So while all of these items do exist on Hydra, and they also exist in our SkuGrid account, they haven't all updated yet. And you can tell just by looking at the initial quantity. If we scroll down a bit here, here's one with 10. Here's, there's going to be some more with 10 somewhere. So there was one with 10 that hadn't been caught up by SkuGrid. It's done more of them since I last looked at this. So if we instead would go to page like 6, then we'd see that there were some that were set to the quantity of 10. And that's just useful to know when, like, so that you can know when your repricer has gone through. It's kind of nice, I guess. But now let's look at a couple things. So we've posted all of these items, and they've been live for, I don't know, like 7 hours, maybe 10, something like that. Actually, no, we can see here. Okay, so closer to 20 hours. So what kind of viewership do we have? First off, let's look at our watchers, because I think this is the best way to determine if an item is going to sell. Views don't necessarily correlate, but watchers tend to be a more sincere interest in the item, whereas views could just be like, if you post an iPhone X, a bunch of people will look at it, but nobody's going to buy it because there's tons. It's just an example. So views doesn't necessarily correlate to sales. And I've found that I've sold items that have 1 view, 2 view, 3 view, 4 views, like multiple times in the past. That's been a recurring thing. So it doesn't necessarily, like, I really would encourage you to not obsess about views, really. Okay. But that being said, let's look at this. So far, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Wait, no. Okay, yeah, like 11, 12, like 13. So we have about 13 items that have at least 1 view or 1 watcher, and 1 item that has 2 watchers. This item has 2 watchers, but this is a test item I posted like 6 days ago to see if I could still post to my account. So I'm not going to include that in the metrics I'm talking about right now. But you can see, like, they're getting attention, which is cool. And we already produced 1 sale, which is really surprising to me, to be honest. I wasn't expecting to have one straight away. And it was also a multi-quantity sale, which is great. And it was even in stock, which I was really not expecting. But that sale, that's like not a whole lot of profit, but like it's like $8 or $9, maybe $10, because they bought 2 quantity of the item. So right off the bat, that's $6 because of the additional shipping fee I calculated for, but won't have to pay. So that's good. And that was within like a couple hours. So that's pretty awesome. And what I've learned from bulk in the past is that you do get kind of some sales like straight away, which is thrilling, definitely. And one of the reasons that I've always done more bulk work is simply because it's just more fun. Like, it really is way more interesting than just posting a bunch of optimized listings over and over and over and over again. It just gets really tedious and boring. Whereas with bulk, it's like, oh, I can make this list of 1,000, and what's gonna happen? I don't know. It's just it's more interesting to me as a person, but that doesn't mean that I'm not doing the Pricematik series. I'm continuing that moving forward, and we're gonna be doing some comparing with all these metrics and everything. So we've looked at our watchers, and now what I need to do is talk about my business policies, because I want to kind of look at, okay, what are the return settings for all of these items? What is the format of the pricing, and what is the payment settings, right? So all of the listings here, if we zoom in a bit, you see that all of our listings each have the same policy. It's either the return policy, payment policy, or shipping policy. So we're going to open these in new tabs, knowing that everything we see on this page is everything that is listed. There's not anything else that we need to worry about. So we're going to start, well, hopefully once these load. There's 2 pages? It's kind of weird. Did I click on the right link? Let's see. I should have clicked on the edit link. That link looks the same. Yeah, it's the same. This is why I've been preloading things. I'm relying on the internet at the moment. It's going to take a minute. But what I'm going to do is show you guys what the current return settings are. And this is everything that was set up for my bulk posting in the past. So it's almost identical to what I want to use, except I'm going to make one change to the handling time. I would like to try and accomplish being a top-rated seller on my Pricematik account. I think it's doable, but I really need to set more systems up in place and automate things. And so what I'm going to do on both of these accounts is increase my handling time by a little bit, just to give me some more wiggle room at the moment, because that's going to help me kind of meet my metrics. Whereas, like, the reality is most of the time the item ships on time with Walmart's 2-day shipping, but I don't necessarily upload it on time. All right, here we go. It finally loaded. So now we can look at our return policy. So my return policy is this way because Walmart gives free returns. That's the most important thing for you guys to understand. Because Walmart has a free return policy, that means that this setting here, return shipping will be paid by seller, I can have set to seller, not buyer, because I'm not going to lose money on returns because Walmart's going to handle that. And I can just kind of push the return onto Walmart, and then I never have to deal with it. I just get the label. And so this allows you to get a bit more of a boost with your... I've never tried setting it to 60 days, but that wouldn't affect me in any way, really, because Walmart would still honor the return. Let's look at Walmart's return policy real quick. Sorry, I got distracted there. Like, if you're not using a source with a free return policy, then you really want to make sure that you have this set to buyer, because this means that I technically pay to when a buyer returns an item, even if I didn't make any mistakes with the item, right? So you really want to make sure that it's set to buyer unless you have a free return policy like Walmart does. Because this really means that the liability is on me to provide the shipping label. So I just got one from Walmart real quick, and it takes like a minute, and then, everything's bueno. And I don't charge you can if you want. Like, a lot of people will teach that you do buyer and charge a 20% restocking fee. But the reality is that most of the time people do returns, they claim that something's wrong even if it wasn't. All right, and this is our default return policy, returns accepted. 30 days gives you a boost in search results, and this means that I'll get the free returns kind of boost. There's a couple different boosts you can get. I don't know if 60 days is worth it, honestly, but why not? I mean, most returns that happen, they happen within like a week. And if they don't happen after like a week or two, they're probably not going to happen. That's just the nature of how people work. So I don't think that I would actually be that affected by setting it to 60 days, as long as I'm actually covered by Walmart's return policy. Returns policy. I think they have a 90-day returns policy. I'm going to look at it real quick, though. Boom, 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 boom. And we're just going to give it the benefit of the doubt and set this to 60. Again, this is just because I'm using Walmart. And then I have a little message here. If you want to return a thing, contact me for a label. Woo! Okay, cool. So that is our return policy that is being used by all of our listings. Good. All right, so we've confirmed that. This is just our basic PayPal payment policy. It's the default. And I do not require immediate payment. This is because I believe that it's actually in your best interests to not require immediate payment. Because when you are set up with a repricer, then you are literally completely unaffected by those sales that the person never pays. And the reason that you're not affected by it is because, one, your repricer will change your item stock back to 1, so you don't have to do that manually anymore. And 2, you set up an unpaid item assistant. And what that does is automatically opens a case against the buyer if they fail to pay within like 48 hours, and then you get your final value fee refunded or they pay. And what you find is that they do actually sometimes pay. So that if you don't believe anything else I'm talking about, just by disabling that setting, you're reducing your sales slightly. Maybe it's 1%, maybe it's 5%. It's not a whole lot, but you do get sales from it that you wouldn't get if you can only accept immediate payment. And the other thing is that when somebody buys your item, even if they don't pay, the listing still makes it look like you've sold one additional item. So it's actually really good because that will encourage other people to buy your item, even though that first person never actually paid, right? So I don't accept anything else. Maybe there's something to be said about like accepting these merchant credit cards so that you can get customers who aren't using PayPal. But the thing is, like, PayPal, it's not like your buyers can't use a credit card. It just means that, like, they have to do it through PayPal. They can still just pay with a credit card using a like PayPal portal thing, basically, that allows them to do that without really having their own PayPal account. It's really convenient. So I don't necessarily think that there's much traffic to be gained by learning more about this, but it's possible, you know. I just personally don't have any experience with accepting merchant credit cards. And then also, most of these settings are just for, they're just for kind of eBay auctioneers, like people who sell on eBay traditionally. Like sometimes, you don't want to pay with a check for an auction that sells, or you actually have the items so people can come to you to pick them up instead of having you ship them, right? So they can save money. The PayPal payments policy is really simple, obviously. So now we can see, I like this screen because I know, okay, that setting I looked at, I know for sure that all of my listings have that policy. And those two policies, the return and payment, they're like, they matter a little bit. But here is the real meat, the shipping policy. Because this is going to really affect a lot of your buyer's experience. It's going to affect what their expectations are, and it's going to affect your kind of whether you get good reviews or bad reviews. So the things to keep in mind here is the handling time and the shipping time. Your buyer will be shown an expected delivery date, or in some cases a guaranteed delivery date, that is these two numbers added together. So your handling time plus your expected shipping time. So if someone were to look at an item today on the 19th, or let's say the 20th actually, because today is not a business day, on the 20th, and they want to buy the item right now, they're going to be shown a delivery date that is 2 to 4 days from now. Do you understand why? Because you look at the handling time, it's 1 day. And then 1 to 3 days to ship. So that means that the delivery date is actually at the shortest, it would be 1 day of shipping plus 1 day of handling, so 2. And at the longest, it would be 3 days of shipping and 1 day of handling time, so 4. So that's how you get that 2 to 4 kind of estimate. Just, again, I don't want to beat around the bush too much, but this is the setting that determines what your buyer expects of you. And this part is really, really important, because if you are able to ship the items quickly, then that's great. You know, you can meet your shipping times. But that's all going to be based on if you're doing 2 day shipping with Walmart or Prime shipping with Amazon. There are a couple other providers that do 2-day shipping, but in general, most sources will take 3 to 5 days and sometimes up to 2 weeks. So do not set these settings to what this is unless you know that all of your items are 2-day shipping items or Amazon items or whatever. Otherwise, you have to use a bigger handling time here. Like, you just have to. Otherwise, you're going to guarantee that you get negative experiences to your buyers, and you're going to get bad feedback from that. You're going to get a lot of messages from people being like, hey, where's my package? And that, like, it gets stressful. And you can eliminate a lot of that just by having things set up correctly here. And honestly, it may be a good idea when you start to just have it higher, even though you know that you can ship the item soon, because that enables you to kind of have a little bit more time. If some error comes up or something cancels your order, you still have a day or two to figure it out, and wait until you really have an established system before you set the policies up to be like this. So I know that this, if you are on point with all of your tracking and uploading everything, and you're only shipping 2-day items, then these settings are what you want in order to get the most kind of viewability to your items. But I'm going to change mine to 2 business days to give myself a little bit more wiggle room. And that's just because I'm setting things up right now. I'm running multiple accounts. I want to make sure that everything's going fine, and I don't want to screw up my late shipment rate. And I also want to, communicate to the buyers properly. Not to keep beating this too much, but there's a strategy you can use to get good feedback here, where you use a really fast shipping service like Walmart, and then you advertise a slow shipping rate, like something like, I don't know, like 5 or 6 days, so that the buyer is shown a date that's like 4 days later or something like that. Because the reality of getting good feedback, so getting bad feedback, preventing bad feedback is simple. You just communicate regularly, and that will prevent almost all of the bad feedback that's going to happen. Sometimes you're not going to be able to do anything about it. But if you communicate promptly about issues and you don't lie and you're straight up, then most people are understanding. But the second that you take too long to respond to a situation, you kind of lose that window. So the key to preventing bad feedback is to communicating promptly, okay? The key to good feedback is to kind of surprise the buyer in some way, because typically the buyer will have kind of an expectation of their experience. And if that expectation is met, they're not necessarily going to go out of their way and write you a review. But what they will write you a review about is when you impress them somehow, or when something out of the ordinary happens and you impress them in the way that you handle it. So that can actually be accomplished when a bad situation comes up, right? Like if you actually impress the buyer when something goes wrong, you can get good feedback from that. And it's possible to turn a bad situation into something that actually ended up being good for the growth of your account. But obviously you can't count on that. So the key really with positive feedback is, again, how do you get those situations to come up where the buyer's impressed? One of the easy ways to do that is to know that you ship items quickly, and then to falsely advertise your shipping speed against you, so that you say, hey, this item is going to show up in like a week. And then it shows up like 2 days later, and the buyer's like, whoa, I was excited about this, but I thought I had to wait, and then it was just there. Like that, you get more positive feedback that way than any other like little tweak that I've tried in the past. That's been the kind of most surefire way to generate more positive feedback. All right, so we've talked about this. I changed the handling time to give myself 1 extra day, and I may change that at some point in the future. Free shipping, yeah, of course. So you could theoretically dropship without using free shipping. I don't know anything about that, though. It would be interesting because it would produce a lot of, like, some sales where you lost money and some sales that were just really profitable. But anyway, that doesn't matter. That's all theoretical. So I encourage people to use GSP. I think GSP is a really good way to add more sales. The first sale I got on this account is a GSP sale. A lot of multi-quantity sales happen through the global shipping program because people want access to like basic things that they don't have access to in their home country. So like I've sold multi-quantities of detergent. That's literally why I posted like 600 bottles of detergent on this account. And then if you're enabling GSP, Actually, just if you're drop shipping in general, don't ever get this section here confused with GSP. Alternative international shipping is when you have a physical item and you're going to pay for international shipping to the buyer's destination yourself. So the only time you could do that as a drop shipper is if your source actually ships internationally, which there are a couple now that do. It's becoming more common, but most of them use freight forwarders anyway, so it's complicated. This is for eBay sellers who are not drop shippers. Do not set this to anything else, because you will find yourselves with an order that you cannot fulfill, because you would have to lose money and use like a shipping thing to fulfill it. So only do international shipping as a drop shipper through eBay GSP. You have to enable it here, and then also there's another place you can enable it as well in like individual listings. And we could talk a little bit about the exclusion list. So why is Europe on my exclusion list? Huh. I wonder why that is. That doesn't make any sense. So I do have to, you want this to match your source. So Walmart could possibly ship to these. I don't think it does. I don't know why I had Europe disabled. That was kind of weird. So the one that's kind of questionable that other people might do is PO boxes, because some items do not get shipped to PO boxes. But honestly, enough of them do ship to PO boxes with Walmart that I encourage you to leave this blank, because if you can't ship the item, then you can just message the buyer, and they usually just give you an address. So that's usually what I do, and I'm always still able to fulfill the sale. So I wouldn't really worry too much about it. All right, sweet. So I think we're pretty much done with this episode. Walmart's loaded their return policy. Okay, sweet. Oh, so some items have a 15 or a 30-day return policy. Interesting. That's good to know. But most items have a 90-day return policy. Huh. Okay. Well, that's good to know. All right, guys. So, bulk's back. Now have an 11,000 item store. That's exciting. The only other thing that's happened so far is I got a message from somebody asking about purchasing 10 available quantity of an item. And who knows? That's not a sale yet, but if that happens, that's an immediate, like, at least $60 a profit, more like 70 or 80. So that would be really cool. All right, guys. I'll catch you next episode. Ciao.